mga party list na Kabataan, Anak Pawis, Bayan Muna, Alyansa of Concerned Teachers or ACT at Gabriela. Makita naman ninyo sa behavior nila and the way they espouse their advocacy for a party left ang talagang grip nila. I am sorry to say, marami akong kaibigan dyan. Respetado ko yung pagkatao nila, but alam nila na alam ko na ang sinusuportahan nila through itong backdoor, itong alliance nila sa gobyerno, napasok yung mga left. Pati sa labas, sa abroad. In the international bodies na infiltrate din nila and they're espousing an advocacy that in the end, ang gusto nila tapusin itong gobyerno na ito. Ang problema, ginagamit nila ang pera. Pinakuha nila yung pera ng gobyerno at binubuhay nila yung they are supporting a bunch of wala na silang ideology. I would have maybe listened kung nandiyan pa sila magsalita, si Halandone na respetado ko Joe Masison. I might really have used words against him, but that was part of my job as president. On my last day, I would continue to criticize and say something about itong mga party list. At hindi lang ang left. Ito ay ginagamit ng mga mayaman, lahat ng mga may negosyante. Either binili nila yung party list o nag-create sila because they can do it with the money. And that has become a problem na fractured na tayo. It's a fractured constitution.
The Philippine government files another diplomatic protest against Beijing following the close-distance maneuvering incident with the Chinese Coast Guard in Bajo de Masinloc last March 2. Bongbong Marcos gets the endorsement of the country's oldest political party, Nacionalista. Supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo gathered for a grand rally in the so-called Romualdez Marcos bailiwick. Want to know where the candidates are headed today? Stay tuned. And basketball action continues in UAAP Season 84. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. The Coast Guard calls out China over its recent close maneuvering in the West Philippine Sea, noting that this is a clear violation of the international regulations for preventing collisions at sea. But China maintains that the area is their inherent territory. Marian Enriquez has the report.
In this video taken last March 2 at Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel can be seen moving close to the Philippine Coast Guard vessel BRP Malabrigo. The PCG condemned the close maneuvering as it violates the 1972 international regulations for preventing collisions at sea. But the China's foreign ministry insisted they have sovereignty over Scarborough Shoal. Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin urged the Philippines respect China's supposed sovereignty and avoid interfering with their Coast Guard. But is this really the case? Based on a UN arbitral ruling in 2016, both China and the Philippines have traditional fishing rights in Scarborough Shoal. For international studies and security expert Romel Banlawi, China needs to be called out. Better if it's the president himself who makes the statement.
Dapat paulit-ulit natin na iparamdam sa China na hindi natin sinasang-ayunan yung ganyang mga klaseng gawain at hindi gawain niya ng isang responsableng bansa.
But the most that the palace came up with is a statement. It said the Philippines will continue to exercise full sovereignty over Bajo de Masinloc and the surrounding EEZ and continental shelf. For Banlawi, failure to condone China, said Banlawi, may only lead to more aggression.
Kung maulit yung ganitong klaseng insidente, tumataas talaga ang panganib na baka magkaroon ng aksidente sa dalawang bansa na mag-ugyot ng direct military action.
Reports of the new aggression come at a time when the Philippines is conducting its largest balikatan exercises yet with the United States. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea Chairperson Hermogenes Esperon confirms that the country has lodged a diplomatic protest against Beijing over the recent incident in the West Philippine Sea. Esperon says it's normal for different countries with conflicting claims in certain areas to have close encounters. But he notes that the Philippine government will continue to stand by our sovereignty over our exclusive economic zone under the UNCLOS and the arbitral ruling. Esperon adds that the government is still for peace in the area.
There may be counterclaims, but we, as a nation, will stand by our established sovereign rights and sovereignty over the area.
Bongbong Marcos may have failed to secure the backing of Zamboanga City Mayor Beng Climaco, but he at least got another party's support, that of his former group, the Nacionalista Party. Marlene Alcaide has the details.
In what is more or less an expected move, the Nacionalista Party of the Villars endorsed the presidential bid of its former member, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., as well as running mate Sara Duterte. Party President, former Senator Manny Villar, whose son is running for senator under the UNI team, said their message of unity is what is needed now.
We're very happy every time that meron tayong nakukuhang suporta, lalong-lalo na sa pinanggalingan naming partido na Nacionalista Party.
But Marcos Jr. has yet to officially get the president's blessing. He remains hopeful though.
Alam mo naman si Presidente, he keeps us on our toes eh. So wala, I hope so. I hope so.
The UNI team continued with their campaign, this time in Zamboanga, which has more than 400,000 registered voters. In what could be another blow to Marcos Jr.'s bid, Zamboanga City Mayor Beng Climaco just recently endorsed the presidential bid of Vice President Leni Robredo. Like many others in Mindanao, they are pushing for the Rosa tandem or Robredo-Sara. But just the same, Marcos Jr. received a warm welcome in the city.
Hindi namin ini-expect na ganito, pero very, it makes me very happy. Nagpapasalamat ako sa kanila lahat at talagang ramdam na ramdam yung init ng salubong dito sa city.
As for Duterte, she's absent in the campaign sortie. The vice presidential bet insisted that she remains loyal to her running mate, despite different groups partnering her with Robredo. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo still showed up in the first ever Seaside Grand Rally in Eastern Samar. That's despite being in a known Romualdez Marcos bailiwick. Gerardo de la Peña has the story.
These posters line up the street in southern Leyte, bears messages linking Vice President Leni Robredo to the communist movement. This has long been an accusation against her camp since campaign began, and it carries on here. After all, she's visiting the territory of a known rival. In fact, the VP acknowledged the difficulty of organizing a rally in the Eastern Visayan province.
Alam ko po na dito sa inyo, hindi ganon kadali mag-organize. Kaya nga po, sobrang nakakataba ng puso na kahit mahirap gumalaw, nandito pa din kayo.
Having lost in the 2016 elections in the Romualdez Marcos bailiwick, thousands of the VP supporters showed up at the government center of Palo for the campaign. Being one of the hardest hit areas by typhoons Dante and Odette, Leyte has received support from the office of the Vice President. This, Robredo said, is a receipt of how she and her team had shown up in the most difficult of times.
Ang magiging sukatan po natin kung talagang aasikasuhin kayo, minamahal kayo, kung nung walang eleksyon, nagpapakita sa inyo na bawat magsasabi na mahal nila yung mahihirap, bawat magsasabi na ayaw nila ng korupsyon, hingian po natin ng resibo.
Besides the People's Campaign in Palo, Robredo also spoke before a crowd in Biliran and Ormoc. Another grand rally, meanwhile, will be held by the beach in Eastern Samar. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Let's find out where the presidential candidates are headed today. Vice President Leni Robredo will continue her campaign in Eastern Visayas. This time, she is expected to attend a rally at Maasin before meeting with fisherfolk in Sogod. The BBM Sara Unity Team, on the other hand, is expected to visit parts of Davao. And they'll first travel from Davao City to Carmen in Davao del Norte to attend the grand rally. Then in the afternoon, they will go to Pantucan in Davao de Oro for another sortie. Finally, at about 5 p.m., the election frontrunners will be attending the Unity Team Grand Rally in Digos, Davao del Sur. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno will be holding a campaign sortie in Iligan, and Moreno will first join a motorcade from Barangay Hinaplon. Then he'll meet with local leaders before attending a rally at the Iligan City Plaza. Senator Manny Pacquiao will visit Iloilo, and he'll meet with several religious and provincial leaders before attending an event organized by Promdi at the Marriott Hotel. And lastly, the Lacson Soto tandem is also expected to make rounds in Zamboanga today. The 84th UAAP season may have just begun, but this year's standouts are already starting to make their mark. Point guard Jerome Lastimosa led Adamson to a convincing comeback after the team suffered an opening day loss. Lastimosa had a perfect game with 14 points on 4 of 4 shooting, along with 2 rebounds and 2 assists to bury the UE Red Warriors 82-66. Meanwhile, Ateneo senior guard Tyler Teo fired 4 triples and totaled 17 points in the third quarter alone to spark a tough beating of the FEU Tamaraos. This gives the Blue Eagles the early top spot with 2 wins and no losses, while FEU slips to a 1-1 record. For the Green Archers, it was former UST star Mark Nonoy who came up big with an all-around outing of 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals in his green shirt debut. The NU Bulldogs managed to keep it a close game, but in the end still succumbed to DLSU, 59-55. And finally, it was a joint effort for UP's Joel Cagulangan and Xavier Lucero to give the Maroons their first win of the tournament. Lucero delivered 18 markers, while Cagulangan manned the defensive floor to make it 2 straight losses for the Tigers at 98-82. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us again later at 9 a.m. as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.